Here's my confession. I knew someone was inside my house the moment I heard the back screen door whisper shut, soft. Like a guilty breath, it was 10:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. The coffee was still hot in my hand, and in that heartbeat of silence between the door and my pulse, I caught her perfume. Sharp, floral, pushy. The same cloud that always floated in before her, our HOA president, Karen. I didn't shout. Didn't stump. I just set my mug down on the porch rail and looked out across my yard, the live oaks, the split-rail fence, and that flag that once draped my father's coffin. The rope on it clicked in the wind like a clock hand. This land. It's where I learned to tie my boots, where my mother stitched winter quilts, where my daughter chased June bugs until sunset. My whole life has a porch, so I walked in through the front door because I don't sneak into my own home. The floorboards know my weight. They didn't creak, but I could hear Drawer's deliberate movement in my kitchen. She was talking to herself. Non-compliant, she muttered. Violation. Like she was reciting magic words that could turn my house into a clubhouse. She stood with her back to me, rifling through my junk drawer, pulling out a tape measure. She was measuring my backsplash. Electrical safety, she whispered, as if that made it holy. Morning, Karen, I said, calm as a lake before the wind wakes it. She spun around and flashed a piece of paper like it was a badge. We posted notice, she snapped. On my door, I said, that's not consent. You didn't respond, she barked, her tone climbing. So I exercised oversight. You entered my home, I said, slow even. Without me? Without permission. She raised her chin like she was posing for a photo. I'm protecting property values. I've received multiple complaints about your additions. My porch swing? I asked. Or the birdhouse my daughter painted on Memorial Day, the one with the crooked blue roof? Unapproved exterior fixtures, she said, the paper trembling. And that flag, it's too large. I looked past her through the window. The flag exhaled and inhaled again. That flag was folded on my father's coffin, I said quietly. We'll leave it at that. Something human flickered in her eyes, then vanished like a light switched off. You'll remove it today, she said, or I'll escalate. That's when the anger came fast and hot, then cooled into something tougher. Not rage. Resolve. You already escalated, I said, gesturing toward the door. Let's step outside. Not finished, she said, and started toward my hallway like she owned sunlight itself. Stop, said. She didn't. There's a line every decent neighbor knows, without needing a sign. My mother used to say you can feel it at your front door, the place where hospitality ends and duty begins. I stepped between her and the hall. You don't go any further. She jabbed her finger at my chest. You think you can intimidate me because you're... And then she froze. Because she remembered what she didn't know about me. People in town know me as the quiet guy who brings peach cobbler to the S. 4th of July picnic. They know my daughter's name. They know I mow my lawn straight and sharp like a marine bed. But they don't all know the rest. I took a breath. You've entered my home without consent. That's a crime. She laughed, brittle as dry leaves. Crime? Please. I'm the HOA president. I said, letting every word land like a nail in old timber. I'm the Sheriff of Redwood County. Silence. The kitchen clock ticked 3 times. Outside, a truck rattled down County Road 9, and a dog barked at a bird it'd never catch. You're lying. Fuck, she whispered. You're trying to scare me. My badge is in my truck, I said. My radio's on charge. But I don't need either to tell you that what you've done is trespassing. Possibly burglary, depending on what those measurements were for. I was conducting an inspection. It requires notice and consent, I said. And a legal authority you don't have. HOA covenants aren't a skeleton key. They don't trump the Constitution. They don't override my front door. Her eyes darted toward the counter, toward my daughter's photo propped by the bread box. Freckles shining, missing front tooth. For a moment, Karen blinked like maybe she remembered what decency felt like. Then she stiffened again. You can't arrest me, she hissed. I'll sue. I have a board meeting at noon. You can call them from the station, I said. I stepped aside, motioned to the door. We'll go peacefully, but we're done here. She didn't move. You wouldn't dare. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch her. I just told the truth. Karen, you broke into the wrong house. I keyed my phone, called dispatch, identified myself, and requested a unit. Procedure, not performance. Because in this job you don't act out anger. You stand in truth. She bolted for the back door. I let her pass, followed her onto the porch. The wind carried a trace of October with it. 2 minutes later, cruiser rolled up under the pecan trees, lights off, just presence. My deputy, steady, young, respectful, stepped out, clipped on his cam, and nodded to me. Ma'am, he said politely, did you enter this residence without the owner's consent? Karen's mouth opened. Closed. The door was unlocked. She stammered. It wasn't, I said. You jimmied the screen. I heard it. Her jaw flexed. I had to. He's non-compliant. Deputy Fields turned to me, and I just stared past both of them at the horizon. Because wearing a badge isn't about winning. It's about leaving the truth standing tall when the dust settles. He read her rights, explained the charge. Cuffed her with the same care he'd use for anybody's mom. As he led her down the steps, she hissed, This isn't over. The board will come after you. We'll fine you into the ground. It stung, not because she was right, but because I know how small power can make people feel big. Karen, I said softly, you'll spend a few hours looking out a window at the same sky we share. Maybe you'll realize there's a difference between rules and rights. The cruiser door closed with a quiet thud. The car eased down the gravel drive. No lights, no siren, just dignity. When the silence returned, I stood on the porch and let it sink into my bones. Anger faded. Disbelief dissolved. Justice had done its work. I looked at that flag again and thought of my dad. He taught me 100 lessons I can quote and 1,000 I just feel. How to stand when the wind's loud. How to speak softly enough that people lean in. How to be calm in the middle of a small storm. I called my daughter. Told her everything was fine. Told her the birdhouse needed another coat of paint this weekend. She laughed and said she'd bring lemonade. And for that moment, I wasn't the sheriff. I was just a dad who liked the smell of sawdust and sugar. Later, I met with the HOA board. Not as a hammer, as a neighbor. They fidgeted with papers and titles, but I kept my voice steady. I explained that inspect doesn't mean enter, that the law still says knock, wait, and ask. I promised to pay my dues, mow my grass, wave to folks I don't agree with. But I also promised the next person who tried my door without permission would leave in the same slow car. One board member, quiet, gray-haired, always polite, finally said, We got carried away. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The first brick out of a wall. That evening, the porch swing creaked under me. The sun burned out behind the pines, orange like a fisherman's lantern. The flag moved soft as breath. Across the street, Mrs. Abernathy watered her roses and pretended not to watch. Like always. That's our kind of neighborhood. We keep each other honest, quietly. I don't love drama. I love this. The porch, the coffee, my daughter's laughter when lemonade turns out to tart and we add another spoon of sugar. I love a county where the sheriff can wear flannel and where the law is a fence, not a weapon. The lake was calm again. And for the first time in a long time, so was I. Sometimes rights don't shout. They just wait for you at the door and you honor them when you knock. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Share your story in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe. And let's stand up together.